Recording started.
Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to this week's Matrix discussion group call for tactical sovereignty. And it is a pleasure to have a returning guest. She hasn't been with us in a while, but Randi Shannon was my administrator basically for the first group of tactical sovereignty that I had. And she's one of the people that I kind of got turned on to information regarding her history and what she had done in the past and things that had led her to where we are today. And I was very impressed with it. And looking at the direction that she's heading in now is something that I believe is totally important, that we have to realize, you know, take for instance, if you're on a plane, give that an analogy, that is going to go down. They tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on your child. And there's very good reason for that. I mean, if you're not healthy, you can't help anybody else out. And we've got to keep ourselves healthy today because everything going on is pointing in the direction of keeping everybody unhealthy. And so I'm just going to turn the floor over to Randi Shannon this evening. I'm going to mute myself out and I'm going to get an education at the same time as I hope all of you will. So welcome, Randi.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm always excited to be on your show, and it has been probably a year, maybe 2 years since I've been on. I'm gonna guess it's been a little bit. So, um, yeah, I've been going down this path, and I've been very very busy in my career, which I absolutely love. A lot of people, I worked until midnight last night, and then I finally did some fun activities for a couple of hours with my kids, but when I say I work, it's really not work for me because I love what I do. So it's not uncommon for me to put in 10, 12-hour days every day. And I can do that, 6, even 7 days a week just because I love what I do. So I have clients all over the world now. I had gone back to school years ago. I have a little bit of a background in politics, walked away from that, happily so, and got into the naturopathic field, which I had been in health and nutrition for, it's going on 30 years or so now, and just had never gotten credentialed. And I knew that it was time to get that done and take this to a whole nother level. And my specialty is what's known as a face, tongue, and nail analysis. And that's where I literally am looking at the face because the face tells us an entire story. I look at the tongue, the top and the bottom, and that story is all about what's going on in the various organs in the body. For example, the spleen, or if somebody has a blood pressure issue, or the digestive tract, the kidneys, the respiratory, or the heart. So, that's just in the tongue, top and bottom. Liver is there as well. On the face, it will tell us all kinds of things, and I'll get into all of that, while we're dialoguing here tonight. But so thank you, Brian. You have a great program. You have amazing followers that are super educated, and those that aren't are getting educated in various fields based on the guests that you have on. So it's always very informative. And that's what this is going to be here tonight. I have no notes. I don't need them. Okay. This is all right upstairs, and this is what I do. I can do this in my sleep. It's, my favorite thing to do. And it's kind of a funny thing when I do go out with friends or whatever, and they'll inevitably, someone will always say, so what do you do when we're meeting people? And I'll say I'm a naturopathic doctor. And a lot of people don't understand what that is. So to differentiate myself from the other practices, I don't really like to use that word because I'm definitely not practicing. But the other modalities that are out there, for example, like a medical doctor, they pretty much go the route of prescription drugs. I don't do that at all. Everything I do when I'm looking at somebody that does need help, everything is literally of the natural. So I believe if you weren't born with it, that it is reversible. Anything, whatever you're dealing with. If you broke something in an accident, that's a different story, but we can bring you relief. I believe the medical community is out there for emergency type situations more than anything. That's not, I don't do any cutting or stitching or surgeries. I do not diagnose, treat, or prescribe as a naturopathic doctor. I chose to go the route of certification versus licensing. And I did that so that nobody could ever take away what I have, or, maybe throw me in jail for saying something they don't agree with. And I'm just very good at what I do. When I got out of school years ago, I went to Wisconsin and I worked with a naturopathic field type of person. He was a doctor of acupuncture, and his expertise was partly the tongue analysis. So I went there and worked with him for quite some time, and he was a very, very busy guy. His practice had 6 to 8 beds. I want to say it was about 8 beds, and people came in all day long for relief. And here's the thing, every single one that came in, I would help get the rooms ready, I would help prepare, and he would do the acupuncture, but he would have everybody stick out their tongue for me because of what it was that I was doing and what I was becoming more of an expert in. And they would stick their tongues out, they would go through the whole process, they would get heat lamps, they would get the acupuncture, he would give them Chinese herbals. And what I found in working there for quite some time is that nobody ever really got healed. And that is in a holistic modality. And the thing is I believe in all of the extras that are out there: massage, IV infusions, red light therapies, blue light therapies, um, you name it, anything that's out there in the naturopathic world. I believe in it. However, I don't believe any single one of those gets the results that the person needs fully. What I do does do that, as long as they follow the protocols that I lay out. So if somebody comes to me with, say, Bell's palsy, that's a big one right now, right? Bell's palsy, arthritis, diabetes, specifically type 2s, they weren't born with it. A lot of times the MDs are diagnosing a type 2 person as a type 1, even when they're 40, 50 years old. That's impossible. That's a wrong diagnosis. And they're only born a type 1. So if it comes on when they're 40, 50, 60 years old, the doctor doesn't have it right. And I find that the doctor doesn't have it right most of the time. So you would not believe, and it's impossible for me now to go back and, put it down on paper because I have so many clients, but it was epidemic, insane levels of people that had their tonsils taken out. So I'm 53, and my sister's 54. Hers were, no, maybe she's 55 now. Hers were removed. So it was about that generation and a little bit older that I'm finding, and maybe within 10 years of that, where it was just tonsils out, tonsils out, tonsils out. Another couple of things that are epidemic levels that the doctors are removing, and these things that they're getting removed for are all reversible. The people are just missing nutrients. So the other two are the thyroid, that's a huge one, and the gallbladder. You would not believe how many people I talk to that have had those three things removed over and over and over, almost every single day. So if somebody is listening to this and they're being told that those things have to be removed, just stop. Don't make any rash moves and reach out to me for sure. And let's talk first. And I'll give out my information, or Brian can, as we get into this. I take on all kinds of emergency type of situations, heart related issues. Heart disease is the #1 cause of people falling in this nation right now. And that's ridiculous, because if they were just given very, very specific nutrients, like we've all heard of the Widowmaker, that is a deficiency of 1 vitamin and 1 mineral. Now you need other things to help that absorb, and you also have to eliminate certain things out of the diet. I have a bad food list that is absolutely non-negotiable. When you remove everything off that bad food list, most of your problems will stop becoming a problem, and they will go away. Now, there's a lot of damage that's been done if you weren't following that list most of your life, which most people aren't. And so that's where I definitely come in because damage has to be repaired, it has to be reversed. And so we give the body very specific nutrients that will go after those certain things. So, how do we know what the specific nutrients are? Well, your MD will never know because they'll run numbers, they'll test your blood, they'll say, but at the end of the day, I personally disagree with the government regulation of like how much of a certain thing is needed in the body on a daily basis. I don't agree with them. And we were all pretty much raised on the food pyramid, which was a complete lie. So we were sabotaged from the age of whatever, 3, 4, whenever we were learning that food pyramid, second grade. Uh, Complete lie, very destructive to the body. I don't know who made it, but they didn't love people. They actually hated people because it started there. And there was a campaign years ago, you know, people like my mom, she's now 74. Um, they were raised with cooking that was made from lard. Well, lard was okay, but then there was a campaign where somebody was paid and they were on the cover of one of the big magazines. It was either Newsweek or Time. And they were paid to do an advertisement for Crisco. They were paid like $1 million. Today's standards, it would have been like $10 million. And they went on there and they lied. And they said that Crisco was good for the people. When really, in reality, Crisco was used in war, and it was the oil, it was a black, disgusting, sludgy oil, as oil should be, uh, to, for the motorized vehicles and to get the wheels to turn, etc. And then they were like, well, we have all this extra oil. What should we do with it? And so they sold the company, and the next company tried to make soap out of it, and it wasn't very popular. And so they were like, well, okay, well, what do we do? So they sold it again, paid somebody. They go on a magazine and they tell the whole world how healthy Crisco oil is. And the whole campaign was a lie. So I believe it was Mercola. I saw him on a show 6, 8 months ago. This information I cannot find anymore. I believe it was part of the information that he was forced to scrub. But there was a study that he was talking about. He did not do the study. It was somewhere in Europe. And the study stated that oils will stay in your system, basically like sludge, for about 7.5 years. So people will fight for the ability to cook their foods in olive oil or cold pressed or, whatever, olive, avocado, coconut. And people fight with me all the time. I went on the Sean Hannity radio show couple years ago, and the co-host was a friend of mine, and I said, coconut oil is no good for you, that it causes more damage than it is good. And his whole Twitter absolutely blew up, and they said that I had no credibility because I said that, yada yada yada. And at the end of the day, here's the bottom line with oils. When you crack that coconut and you eat that oil off of it in the first 15 to 30 minutes, I'm all for it. Super healthy, delicious, great for you. But when the oils are exposed to oxygen, the longer they're exposed to oxygen, the worse they become. And those oils in a bottle are actually rotten and rancid. And every day people are eating them. And I'm starting out with this because anybody who doesn't want to hear the rest, go ahead, go. But you're missing out on the most important information that's yet to come. So the oils, if they were processed properly and to remain healthy, these guys processing them would need to go down into a nitrogen tank with dive suits on and spray the inside of those containers out with nitrogen and then put the oil in it and seal it, and there would be no gap between the oil itself and the top of the bottle. But if you go to any store shelf and you look, there's always an air gap in there, and that whole time that oil is sitting there, it's oxidizing. And when you eat it, it's going to cause incredible free radical damage in your body and oxidative stress, and you are going to age much faster. And how do I know when somebody's eating oils? When I look on the underneath of the tongue, if I see blue, purple, or black, then I know that they're eating foods cooked in oils or putting the oil all over their salad. There's a doctor out there. who's he's a heart doctor, and he has silver white hair, and his name rhymes with Mundy. I don't want to say his name, but he is telling everybody the wrong information, and tons of people are following him. But if if your doctor looks like hell, why are you following that? If he doesn't look like a product of health, then stop following him or her. Okay? So when you eat those oils, you're shaving time off of your life. And if Mercola, the story he reported on, is absolutely accurate, then those oils are staying in your system like sludge for about 7.5 years. So you're harming yourself. Can you undo it? Yes. Does it take time? Yes. And I feel like I am about one of only 5 doctors out there in the world that's actually teaching this the right way. And I only can name 2 others. I can't even name if there is 2 others on top of that. So when I say 5, it's less than 5 probably in the whole entire world that's actually talking about this information. So argue all you want. People do. And if you want to go off the cliff, you sure go ahead and do that. So if you have blue, purple, or black on the underneath of your tongue, you need to be calling me, because that has to be undone. Otherwise, you're a very good candidate for being one of those people in the statistics for the heart disease being the #1 cause of death in this country. So that's a real big one. And if it starts to branch out in the underneath of the tongue, then it's moving into the liver, because underneath the tongue always represents the heart and liver. The tongue should be very fleshy colored underneath of there, and you'll see it around the blue and purple and black. And when it's fleshy colored, I like to give a good visual. So when it's fleshy colored, that means that the blood and the cells, et cetera, everything that's in our blood is just moving through the veins, capillaries, blood vessels like a fast moving LA freeway. Those cars are just going zip, 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 and everything is moving perfectly. But when you see those colors, that's more like a 5 to 8 car pileup on that same LA freeway. Think about that. Look in the mirror, take a look at that. And if you're seeing that pile up, then you need to reach out to me. And in fact, I do have a toll-free number that I will give out. I always have it written in the back of these books. Let's see, because I don't know my own toll-free numbers by heart. Okay, it's 844-275-1056. 844-275-1056. So you can call there. If you do call, leave your name, age, height, and weight. And I do an analysis, and I'll tell you about that. And I'm going to make a very big offer to your listeners, Brian. So I'm not going to tell anybody what that offer is, but trust me, it's worth it. And the people that are listening here today, and I'm going to make that offer good for your listeners for the next 7 days. So they're going to have to call that number within the next 7 days. Don't call right this minute, because you don't know the offer. So you need to know what you're taking advantage of first. But when you do, I want the name, age, height, and weight, and an email address, because I do send things to you right away. Also, anybody can go to the website, thebodycan.com, thebodycan.com. You can go there and get my good and bad food list. It's right there. It should just, you pop in an email. I do not spam. I don't have time for it. So you go there, you put in the email, and it should automatically give you a copy of my good and bad food list. So what else? Okay. So the fingernails, if everybody wants to take a look at their fingernails, occasionally I'll put on a polish, but most of the time I don't. I've probably done it once in 5 years, and it was just because I had an event that I was speaking at. But when ladies put the polish on and they're pushing their cuticles back, that skin on the cuticle was actually a protective barrier. So when you're pushing it back, or taking that off, you're actually removing a protective barrier to your fingernail. So it does allow for exposure of things. That's why hygiene is very important. But if you look at your nails, we have something that some people will call a half moon, lunalae. Okay. And if you look at your nails, you should have 8 of those half moons. It'd be down around your cuticle area. If you don't have 8 half moons, you should be calling me. If you have 2 half moons on just the thumbs only, you're a very high risk for cancer. There was a study done, and they started looking at people, and if you had cancer, and they started looking at the nails of the people that had the cancer, and 80% of them had just, so it's an indicator. It's not a for sure, but it's definitely an indicator that something has definitely gone awry. Um, if you have half moons on the pinkies, that's a problem. Okay, there should be no half moons on the pinkies. These are all outward signs. We are like the rings of a tree. And what do I mean? If you take a tree and you cut it in half, you're going to see the lifespan of that tree. You're going to see everything that that tree went through, whether it was fire or flood or pestilence, that shows in those rings of the tree. We are the exact same. So our faces, our ears, our fingernails are telling us what's going on. And the life in a fingernail from cuticle to tip is 6 months of your life. That's the time span, 6 months of your life. So whatever's going on in the body in the last 6 months, I can tell that by just looking at your fingernails. So it's very specific. And I look for ridges, discolorations. Sometimes those half moons are at the top instead of the bottom. That's a problem. Uh, when people see little white spots in the nails, that's an issue. Uh, and I won't get too much more into that, but the nails are very, very telling. If you have marks, any marks of concern on the body, things that you weren't born with, things that are getting worse, things that are showing up later in life on the body, uh, those are things that you should be reaching out about and not ignoring. And I'll give an example. I have a client who was getting what we call cherry angiomas on her body. And she had lots of them around the chest area, around the abdomen area. And so she went to a dermatologist, and the dermatologist said, "Oh, not a big deal. Let's just freeze those off." Whoa, big mistake. That is not what you do. So a dermatologist who went to school, I don't know how many years that is, at least 6, maybe 8, and didn't know what they were or what the cause was, and no one's taught that. So when they show up around the abdomen, that's definitely going to be something in the reproductive area, and not to be ignored. The body doesn't just throw up a cherry looking mole for no reason. There's something going on in the inside. If they're up around the chest area, armpit, or even along the hairline, they all mean something. So if they're on the hairline, you're definitely running a risk of an aneurysm. Okay. If you have if you have those, definitely don't ignore them. Don't freeze them off. In this woman's particular case, they froze them off and came back with a vengeance. The body was like, "Oh, okay, you want to ignore this? Then let's go again," and gave them to her worse. So she had more the second round. And on the second round, they froze them off again. Now she's getting scarred because she has all these frozen off moles. So scars everywhere. That skin, once it gets, it's basically like a cryotherapy. Once that's frozen like that, yep, it killed it on the surface, but it doesn't kill the cause of what's going on in the body. So definitely not to be ignored. Um, Prostate issues. People always run to the MD with an enlarged prostate, or ED problems, or they'll go get Viagra, or there's another one out there. I don't remember the name of it right now, but they go out there and they get these things, and they don't think, maybe I should get to the root cause of why this is actually going on in my body. So when I look at the tongue, I am particular looking for something that looks like strawberry seeds. And I remember as a kid, I remember looking at somebody and we were talking about it, and everybody thought it was their taste buds. It's not your taste buds. When those strawberry seeds start to appear on the tongue, that's more like your hormones are way out of balance. So a lot of body systems actually create hormones, and all the rage right now is go get bioidenticals. Well, your body doesn't want a bioidentical. And what you have to do is give the body the nutrients that it needs so it can produce the hormones that it's supposed to be producing. If you give it a bioidentical, it's like going on a welfare system. So it's just going to be like, okay, I don't have to work. I'm not going to work, because you're tricking the brain is all you're doing. Every single person that I look at that's on bioidenticals still has the strawberry seeds. Nothing's going away. Nothing is getting fixed. You might feel better, but you have not fixed the problem. All you did is put the body on a welfare system. This body has to work. So, and speaking of this body having to work, not everybody got, the thing that's going around. I did. And when I got it, I laid in bed for at least a solid week, and I did not take any medications whatsoever. I wanted my body to work. And so I fed it certain nutrients, and a lot of them. It was kind of a mother load, and got through it. And it took about a week. You can get through it, but if you have issues now in advance, you're going to struggle more. I went into it with perfect health. I looked at my own tongue. I look at my tongue every single week, and I had a perfect tongue. No cracks, no crevices, no spots, no discolorations, no blockages, nothing. And by about the second day or third day, when I got sick, I looked, because I was having a hard time breathing. It was painful to breathe. So I looked, and there's a certain meridian in the tongue, and it had an instant crack in it. And so I was measuring my oxygen levels while I went through it. And, like I said, it was painful. And my oxygen level went down to a 90. And I told my son, if it goes one more, I'm going to go grab some oxygen. But it didn't. So I didn't need to, and got through it. And I'm happy, because I'm actually much stronger now. And I did not allow my body to go through a welfare system. I wanted it to fight. That's what this thing is. It's a fighting machine for your life. So if you let it, and if you help it. So you drive the car. Most everybody has a car. You put in spark plugs. You put in wiper fluid, gas. You do tires every once in a while. You have to change so much to keep that car running. This is a vehicle too, and you have to maintain the vehicle. Most people just go along and go along, and they don't realize, hey, the heart needs some support, the liver, the kidneys, the bones, everything needs support. You just go through life asking and asking and asking and asking it to do so much for you, but don't give it anything in return. Or you pick and choose. Oh, I take this product and it's got 5 ingredients in it. Or I hear this one a lot. People over 50, they take these vitamins for men over 50 or women over 50. And when I look at the nutrients and I look at the levels of nutrients, the company was good in that they put a lot of different nutrients in it. But the dosing of it is so low. I mean, a 100-pound person would have to take like 4 times the amount of what the daily dosage is prescribed on it or suggested, to even get anywhere near where they're supposed to be. And then sourcing is also a very big deal for me, because if it's coming out of China, I don't want anything to do with it. And, if it's got synthetics and fillers, what's the point? What is that? You don't need that. That's just garbage. And we've all heard it, like the grocery store has a health food section, and usually it's not very big. So what does that tell you about all of the rest of it? It's not a healthy, grocery store. They have a teeny bit of health food section, and the rest is just literal garbage for the body. So you have to be very particular in what you're putting into the body. So, people will argue with this one, Brian. No wheat, barley, rye, or oats. Okay. And people are like, well, I don't get sick. That's just a craze. That's bunk. Da 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 da. The thing is, and it's, I had somebody the other day say, well, God made it. So how could you sit there and say it's not good for me to eat? At the end of the day, buckwheat was what the strong people were eating, not wheat. And I'll bring up, and I may not say it quite right, but there was 3 guys thrown in the fire. Don't know if you remember who those are, Brian. You probably do. And those guys refused to eat the king's meat. Well, I liken that to today. We're thrown into the fire, and I'm refusing to eat the king's meat, because what do? The food pyramid, most 90% of what's on the grocery store is no good. That's the king's meat. And what did it do back in the biblical days? It weakened them. And people will fight and say, yeah, but the gladiators, they had strong bones. Well, they still fell and they still died. And those three guys that were thrown into the fire, they won the battle. They didn't get burned. So you can manipulate that any way you want, but at the end of the day, they refused to eat the king's meat, and I think, or the king's food, and I think that there is a huge message in that you have to learn to say no. Just because it looks like food doesn't mean it is food. Just because it tastes amazing doesn't mean it is amazing. Many years ago, I'm talking like 20 years ago, I met this family in Des Moines, Iowa. They were filthy rich, filthy rich. And they had formed a company that did the flavorings in the foods. So they can take a steak, for example, and make it taste like vanilla pudding with those little concoctions that were made up. And that's what they put in the so-called food today. It's not really food. And, people, I've been saying it for years now, but I've been hammering it even harder in the last year. Get your own chickens, get your own cows, grow your own gardens, be prepared, pull back from the system the way it is today, because it doesn't have anything good for you. They have nothing good for you. Uh, People fighting to be in these public schools. It's like, why are you fighting to put your kids in those schools where they're going to be trained up and turned against you? And they're going to say, you're the enemy. I had a son come home from public school one time. And he told me that I was the problem of global warming. And I, was like, what in the world are you talking about? And it was because I had taken a plastic bottle and thrown it into the trash. I didn't recycle it. So I was the problem. Now, I don't like all the plastic any more than anybody else. I use glass as much as I possibly can, but I'm not the problem for anything remotely called global warming. And it's my firm belief that the oceans in particular are dying, and they are dying, because we have dammed up all of the wild rivers that we once had, and that silt used to wash into those oceans, and that was the food for the oceans. And now they don't get that because we have dammed it up all across this country, all around the world, really. And there's an insane amount of dams that are slotted to be built in addition to what's already out there. So there has to be a way to bypass and allow that erosion, that silt, to make its way to the oceans, and then the oceans will live and thrive. And as far as the plastic goes, the point being of that story is the school is training your kids up to be against you, to be hateful for whatever it is that you're doing. So after that, I had a conversation with him, and it was not too long after that that I pulled him out of school. And you have to have the guts to do that. And don't use the crutch of, well, I got to work. Figure it out. Figure it out. I've basically been a single mom through all four of my sons. My first husband passed away. I raised those two boys on my own that I had with him. And then I got divorced and raised those two boys mostly without him. And, I never stopped anybody from seeing them. But the point is, if I could figure it out, you can figure it out. And life has not been easy, but I wasn't going to have my kids turned against me or deal with every other family's problems. And every one of my kids is very smart and very independent. They research things far more than I ever did. They're kind of like a Brian, every one of them, in the sense that, he goes down these rabbit holes and he understands and he learns and he studies and he shares it. That's kind of how my boys are. They're a little more quiet, though. They're not vocal, but they have basically affected all of their friends, and the circle that they have is all very, very wide awake. And not one of my sons will ever put one of their kids in a public school ever. So you can do it on your own. And you definitely should be raising and growing your own food for sure. My goal is honeybees and chickens and cows and goats and all of that. And, that's actually a dream life. The city, I live in Miami. There's a lot of great things about it, but at the end of the day, there's a lot that's not so great about it. So I love the ocean and the sun. That's the main thing. And I have, some good friends in my circle, but I could really drop most everything in an absolute heartbeat to go and raise all those animals and have a farm and just unplug and work from home and get out of the system the way it is today. And I highly encourage people to do that. So back to the tongue. If you stick your tongue out and you're looking in the mirror right now and you look at it and you see any cracks at all, if you see them dead center, you're looking at a digestive issue. So what happens? Well, when you eat any version, and I love having the freedom of being on your show, Brian, because there's companies out there that are touting products that are very barley related, and they say, well, the sprouts are okay. Uh, Wheat, barley, rye, and oats are not okay. Why not oats? Well, even if it says it's gluten free, it still has the evil twin gliadin. And there isn't a grocery store on the planet, and like I said, less than 5 doctors in the world that is even talking about this. Gliadin is in oatmeal, and it, like the other things that are in the wheat, barley, rye, and oats, goes through the digestive system like a wrecking ball. And by the time it makes it to the small intestine, we're supposed to have thousands of grass like structures called villi. And those villi are responsible for pulling in our nutrition. And when we don't have them because they were mowed down by the wheat, barley, rye, and oats, then our absorption rate goes down to less than 2%. When that happens, people are absorbing basically nothing or calories. And that is the number one reason for obesity, or just in general, people being overweight. I've tried everything, I can't get it down. Stop eating wheat, barley, rye, and oats. It takes about 12 to 14 days for the villi to start growing back. And once it grows back, you'll start absorbing again. But it takes 12 to 14 days of eating very clean for that to grow back. And then you're looking at months and months for it to be fully back. Okay. So it's not worth it to go to that Italian restaurant and have that fresh baked, uh, you know, soft white bread, because you're just going to knock that back out. And you got to start that whole process of healing all over again. Totally not worth it. Okay. So if you have the cracks in there, it's going to take a while for that to heal. You're going to need some nutrition to reverse damage that's going on in the gut. Leaky gut, Crohn's disease, skin disorders like, acne or rashes that you can't figure out probably are stemming from that. That also starts the ball in motion, if you will, of having issues that are digestive related, acid reflux, heartburn, indigestion, etc. That is the ball in motion. You've got destruction going on. The stomach acids are not at the right pH. They should be a 1.2 to a 1.5 pH. So when you're starting to have those indigestion, reflux, you've got to get that back to that really, really acidic level of pH. A lot of people will drink an alkaline water while they're eating dinner. That is a foolish thing to do. Why? No one at Kangen's going to like me. Because the stomach is supposed to be so acidic. So if you're changing the pH, or you don't have the right things in there to make the stomach super acidic, then you're going to have problems. And so the MD community will tell you, well, just go get a Tums, whatever. So it's a temporary Band-Aid. The problem is you're causing damage. And if you don't stop and realize what is causing that, then you can just keep on going, and then eventually they remove a gallbladder, or they tell you they got to remove a thyroid or whatever. There's just always something that they want to remove, or a drug that they want to put you on, and you can avoid all of that. It's ridiculous. You don't have to be on those things. So all of my protocols are about 90 to 120 days to reverse most of the issues. So what I do, in fact, I'll show you. I was showing Brian and Keith before we went live some photos. Let's see, not that one. We'll start with, this is one of my clients. hopefully, I don't know if I can, yeah, let's see. The top is when they came to me, and then the bottom is about, I think it's 60 days later. You notice the healing that's taking place. They're not there yet, and I don't say anybody will be, completely better in 60 days, but that's the beginning. I'm going to show you another gentleman who came to me. This was day one. Let's see. How's that? That probably looks okay. Let's see if you can tell that his legs are very black. Okay, day one, very black. His scleroderma. The MD community told him that it was progressive and that he would never get any better. So he came to me out of desperation, and this is him after working with me for 60 straight days. Let's see. If you notice the lightness. Okay. We're turning the body back on again. This is what he looked like on day one. Okay. So this gentleman, I don't know who he is, but he actually he was speaking out, and I just happened to screenshot his face. I have no idea who he is. He's in politics somewhere. This gentleman, let's see. Not my client at all. He's like some political person. If you notice between his eyes, he has a line that's going vertical. He's got a spleen issue. If you look under his eyes, he's really puffy. He's got a kidney issue. Can those be reversed? Yes. So if you have any of that going on, you need to reach out. Now, this person, she's autistic. If you, in this particular picture, look at the puffiness at the bottom of her eye. That's what I'm going to show you the difference in 30 days, okay? Same girl. Puffiness completely gone. Now, she does have a liver issue, okay? The discoloration is a liver issue. But again, this is what she looked like on day one. So 30 days later. Also, she was not communicative with her parents, and she wouldn't eat at the dining room table. She wouldn't speak to them at all. And I sent a message to the mom like 2 weeks into this protocol that I have her on, and I gave her some very specific things to kind of undo what's going on in the brain, and to feed the brain and get all the neurons and everything firing again. And I get very connected to cases like this. I talked to the mom just a few days ago. Well, I had sent her a message like 2 weeks in, and her daughter, who really doesn't communicate too much, actually relayed a message back to me. The mom told the daughter that, Dr. Randi was reaching out and wanted to know how she was doing in the protocol. And in the very beginning, the daughter was very combative in the sense that she would not take the protocol at all. She didn't want it. She argued it. She fought it, etc. And so now we were 2 weeks into it, and now she will not leave the table until it's gone. She actually takes it. I have a drink here. She actually fights to get the protocol at this point. So also, she's more communicative with her parents. She now takes an iPad and she types out messages to her parents, whereas she wouldn't talk to them at all before. It was just, kind of noises, but, and then they would just kind of read her face. So that's just one more of my clients, and I'm very excited about her. The parents also had their own issues, and so we're dealing with them. And even the wife was like, I can't believe that I actually can feel like this. She said, I feel like I'm in high school again. Sorry, I got a tickle here. Anyway, so that's just a few of my clients and some of the things that we do. Those are some of the most recent, but I have thousands of clients. They're all over the world. And I do hope that some of you become my clients and reach out to get some help. So what am I going to do? What am I offering to your listeners? Well, let me explain the two analysis that I do. One is a tongue analysis only. And that's where I look at the top and bottom of the tongue. You send me a photo, literally, of the top and bottom of the tongue. You're going to call my toll-free number, 844-275 10. Hold on. Let me make sure I'm telling it right. 1056. And you will send me a message there. My assistant, Julie, will call in. She'll pick up all my messages tonight or tomorrow. And over the course of the next 7 days. So any one of your listeners, Brian, and if you call in right away, you could be done right away. But the last show that I did this for, I was backed up for about 3 or 4 months. So that many people called in. They do have to be listeners of your show because I do quiz them. So if they're not really listeners, I'll know it. So if they call in and they want a tongue analysis only, they will just leave me their information. My assistant will get in touch with them, tell them exactly where to send those photos. And I'll get a tongue analysis done and put together a protocol. I'll show them what all is going on with them. I do like to know if something is. Sometimes people want to quiz me, but trust me, I know what I'm doing. And inevitably, there's always somebody that says, no, you tell me what I have. And I always nail it. Okay. So I'm not really concerned about that. The calls are 10 to 15 minutes only. And so you need to take advantage of the fact that you do have a naturopathic doctor on the phone, and we get right straight to the meat and potatoes and get you some help. Now, if you have more of a serious issue or something that's very chronic, you should go do the full analysis. I don't give discounts on that because it's very detailed. And you do got to go to the website for that one, and you can call the toll-free number also, because you will want to talk to my assistant. She'll tell you certain things that you need to get to me. But you'll go to thebodycan.com/schedule. So the body can, CAN, as in the body can heal itself, thebodycan.com/schedule. And there you can read all about the full analysis and get yourself scheduled there. That one I am going to charge for sure. But inevitably on every call, there are emergencies. And you people are sitting at home. You don't want to go see a medical doctor, and I get it. I don't either. When I got sick with the thing that's going around, the last thing I wanted to do was go anywhere into their clutches. And so I took my own nutrients and got through it just fine. No medication, not a Tylenol, not anything, nothing. So anyone can fall. I look at that. I personally believe it's a biological weapon, and I think a lot of people feel the same. I think there's plenty of evidence that's come out about that. But, picture the guys that were in different wars where they dumped, Agent Orange on them, mustard gas, etc. And, their bodies had a hard time surviving that because it's not natural. So if you wonder how could somebody fall from what's going around right now? Well, because it's not natural. And again, I believe it was made in a lab. So I do also believe that God made cures for everything. So that's what I use for my clients. But when this thing is going around and it was completely manipulated in a lab and it's completely foreign to this world, then, people will struggle with it. So building your body up right now is very critically important. If you have cracks, if you have spots, if you have the black, blue, or purple on the underneath of the tongue, where those veins and capillaries are bulging, then you should be reaching out. End of story. Because you can't take a chance with your vehicle that you're driving. Your body needs nutrients. It needs supplements. It needs the removal of the toxic things that you're doing. And I guarantee, Brian, as educated as your audience is, that there are people that are listening to me right now that are absolutely doing probably the bulk of everything that's on my bad food list. So, that has to stop, or it's early to the grave. End of story. There's another study that came out about carbonated beverages. And that one stated that it literally cuts your life in half. Well, it makes sense. You're not putting oxygen into the body, into the cells. You're doing the exact opposite what the body and the cells don't want. So why wouldn't it cut your life in half? It just kind of seems like common sense, but they had to do a study to figure that one out. Um, and again, I believe in all the supplemental things. I do them too, but internally is where it matters. And you can't just, cherry pick. Oh, I took some vitamin C and I took a little vitamin D and I took a little uh, uh, zinc, for example. No, there's certain things you need to do. Also, you need to do detoxes. There's certain things that will hover in the body. Did you ever have a mercury filling? Have you ever been exposed to anything they dumped out of the sky? Um, I don't know. I mean, we can get toxins anywhere. And so you should definitely be doing some detoxes. I have one that's pretty phenomenal. It's made up of just herbs, and it removes something like 100 different toxins out of the body. It's pretty insane. So, it can nauseate you. That's because you're bringing a lot of this gunk to the surface and it's headed out. And so it can nauseate you, but that's just a minor inconvenience to avoid a big inconvenience, which is going to a hospital or getting in the clutches of a medical doctor who doesn't understand that you can't freeze things off and you really shouldn't remove those organs, and that there is a better way to take care of it. The gallbladder, for example, if you are listening and you had a gallbladder removed, you should be reaching out to me because your MD should have told you one particular thing that you needed to take for life. And if you're not on something that he told you should take for life, then you should be reaching out. You should be getting an analysis, whether it's the free one that I'm offering for 7 straight days, which is the tongue analysis only, top and bottom of the tongue, 7 straight days to all of your listeners, Brian. So today is what, Sunday? So this ends basically, we'll say Saturday at midnight of next week. So everyone should be taking advantage of that and getting their bodies back on track. Everybody's heard it. The people perish for a lack of knowledge. Well, I have the knowledge and people are still perishing. So put an end to that. Kids, grandkids, all of these people, they're probably all eating the wrong diet. That all needs to be changed, so that you're not raising up other generations to be going through the same exact thing. Why would we do that to our kids? I can assure you I've educated all of my sons and then their girlfriends and their friends. Nobody has the ability to get around Randi Shannon and not get educated. Period. End of story. I'm always talking and telling people. Okay, so let's talk about the face. The face in particular, I've already mentioned a couple of them: puffiness under the eyes, discoloration under the eyes, lines. A lot of women will go get Botox. And if you have lines that are showing up in here or here, and this is men and women, it's just women go get Botox and fill it in. And there's no, if you get lines here, if you have vertical lines, that's going to be your spleen. If you have some kind of diagonal lines, that's going to include your liver. And there's another one in here that's your pancreas. So those are not aging, and you shouldn't be covering them with Botox. You should have nutrients in your diet that remove those naturally. Okay. So all of those lines mean something, and it's the body saying, hey, your pancreas is in trouble, it needs a little help. Can you put the oil in the car? And if you're willing to put that oil in the car, then guess what, those lines won't show up. If you have them, they'll be like incredibly diminished, if not go away completely. No Botox needed. That would put all of those cosmetic guys out of business. Okay. People in childbearing years most definitely should be on a very specific list of nutrients so that they can ensure that that child will not be born in a weakened immune state. So autism, for example, I remember years ago when the list was something like 1 in every 100 kids was born autistic. Now it's something like 1 in 63, or maybe even less. And every year it gets worse and worse. Well, could it be from the shots? Yes. But kids that are born that way, the mother was broke. Okay. The mother was broken. What do I mean by that? I don't want to like make the mothers feel bad, but if the mother is not on nutrients, if she doesn't have specific nutrients and she's just going through the pregnancy and hoping that that can of green beans or that Monsanto laden salad, or, even if it's organic, there's still only 3 nutrients ever put into the ground. So they put in NPK, 3 nutrients. That's it. Whether it's a pesticided food or an organic food, 3 nutrients. That's it. So that food, for example, selenium. Selenium is in the ground. I've seen all the topographical maps, which are interesting to somebody like me. The topographical maps will show the selenium is in abundance in the ground in Wisconsin and Minnesota. What about Florida? What about California? So if I grow a head of lettuce in Minnesota, probably I'm going to get some selenium in that head of lettuce. But if I grow it in California, not going to get anything. It's not going to be there. It will not be there. How can it be? It has to pull it from the ground. Okay? So it's impossible for you to get that nutrient into the body, and yet it's a trace mineral. It's an essential mineral. The body cannot create it. It has to be given it, and it's very necessary for so many systems in the body. Most of the seleniums that are out on the market are filled with yeast, synthetic, fillers. If it says it's 100 micrograms of selenium, chances are you'll be lucky if there's about 10 micrograms in there. They lie about what they actually put in it. I do, in particular, take a very specific selenium that has 5 cofactors in it. No synthetics, no fillers. And when they say it's 100 micrograms, there's 100 micrograms plus the cofactors that go with it to make it work astounding in the body. I want real results. It's been proven that it takes about 400 micrograms per day to thwart 62 to 63% of the cancers out there. So if you're taking a selenium or a product with selenium and it says it's got 40 micrograms, and then the rest is like synthetics and fillers, what are you really getting? How much cancer are you thwarting? Do you wonder why you got cancer? I just gave you the reason why, one of the reasons. Okay. When I hear about elderly people, usually that get shingles, or people that get, herpes outbreaks or chicken pox, things like that, those viruses are in the body. I always say to people, and it's true, no offense to Catholics out there, but the Catholic Church was huge in passing the herpes virus around. When I was a little kid, I used to watch all the adults, because you weren't allowed as a kid, but I would watch all the adults go up and drink out of the same cup. And then they would take the towel and wipe it off. And I remember thinking as a little kid, wow, that's gross. Like, everyone's drinking off the same cup. And like, look at that's all over the world. Somebody who gets a shingles outbreak, these viruses are there, they're laying dormant in the body, and when they show up is when the immune system is in a weakened state. So that tells me when somebody says, yeah, I just got over shingles, or yeah, I just had this outbreak, or whatever, I know instantaneously that they have a weakened immune system, and I know exactly what to give them, to tell them. It's not diagnosing, it's not treating, it's not prescribing. It's saying this is what the nutrient is that the body needs specifically so that it comes out of that weakened state. And I always do an analysis on that person, because if I see the cracks right in the meridian where the digestive system is, then I know they're not absorbing anything good anyway. And if their diet isn't clean, all they're doing is sabotaging themselves. That's it. Okay. Let's see. Oh, here's a biggie. When people have any of the lines right around here, they think, oh, it's just aging. Now, there is smile lines, because you're kind of always squinting. But when you start to fall, or you get the chicken neck, or, just droopy anywhere, that means that your body doesn't have the nutrients in it to maintain your bone matrix, basically. The cartilage, the ligaments, the tendons, that whole bone matrix. So there's certain things that I'll give clients, and it is astounding how a person's face will change from day 1 to 6 months down the road. They look like completely different people. I had a woman come to me whose one eye was like pretty closed, And she's about my age. And she's like, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And I said, okay. She said, I'm thinking about having a cosmetic procedure. I said, please, give this a shot first. Do what you want, but I would say give this a shot first and take these nutrients. These are things that I gobble down like candy. Okay. There's no such thing as an overdose of these things. And I don't have the chicken neck. I work out, I do work out and I do weights and things like that. And I am Norwegian and Swedish. So just by nature, I feel like I have a good or better bone structure than some, nationalities out there. So I do have a couple things that I feel like are on my side and I'm grateful for. But if you start to feel like it's all falling down, you should be reaching out to me, not a medical doctor, and try to avoid those surgeries because they're putting you under, they're giving you an anesthesia. I've heard, and I don't know this to be true or not. In fact, some people make it through it and some don't. But I've heard that you really should never go under more than like 3 times under an anesthesia. I know people though that have gone under like 10 times, and and they still survive. But I think every time you do it, you're shaving time off your life. So if you drink the healthy things, if you eat the healthy things, and then you input like amazingly healthy things, I start in the morning and I'm still going strong, with something that I'm drinking right now. And I do this constant putting in. And, if I go have a glass of wine, for example, I'm not, so bad that I don't think that you can have certain things or, coffee, etc. But they will all aid you unless you do things to undo them. So if I go out and I have a glass of wine, I'll come home and I'll take something that helps to regulate out my blood sugar levels or to undo any blockages if I felt like the restaurant cooked my food with oils. And it's not hard to eat in the restaurants. Most of them will serve you gluten-free anymore anyway. And, you can always get wild caught salmon, things like that, if you're in a restaurant, or you can eat the salads. My dressing, for example, is I don't eat any dressings in a bottle. They all have oils. Okay. So you're just saying, hey, clog my heart, clog my liver, clog my veins, capillaries, blood vessels. So I'll just take 100% organic lemon juice or lime juice. I like both. And I drink them both in abundance. I add a lot of salt. In the morning alone, I probably eat about a teaspoon and a half of salt. So I put that in my smoothies. I have salt in this smoothie right now. Gives it like, the sweet part and then the salt part. It's always a good mix. I eat lots of eggs in the morning, but my dressings in the morning, I'll eat, 4 to 6 meals a day. And I'll eat the carbs more in the morning. And my carbs are easy carbs like rice. I also like to eat sweet potatoes, regular potatoes. And then I'll cook my eggs. And sometimes I'll pour lemon juice on it, or I'll put it on a bed of lettuce. And my dressings will be a carved up avocado, carved up tomato. I'll carve up celery or something, and I mix it all up. Lots of sea salt and pepper. Put that on. It's delicious. And I'm not harming my body in any way, shape, or form. Everything is good. Everything is good. You have to stop putting bad things into this vehicle if you want it to operate right. Otherwise, you're taking it off of a cliff, and it will fight for you like crazy. It will fight. But you don't want those last few years of your life to be so lack of quality. You want, I mean, I don't know what we'll die from if you actually, I don't know what I'm going to die from one day, but some of you probably heard this. It's kind of like a meme that goes around for healthy people. And somebody said, Dr. Randi, you're going to be there lying in bed one day, dying of nothing. Okay, I'll take that. It's better than suffering. I do not want to suffer. I don't like pain. So if I can like not allow that to happen, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do everything to fight it. And because I'm a mama bear, I make sure that my sons, I have 4 sons, I'm going to make sure that they always are healthy too. They fall off the wagon a little bit because they're men, they're young men, 22 to 32. So they don't always get it, but lots of eggs in the morning. Why? Lots of eggs throughout the day. Why? Because your brain is made up of 75% cholesterol. Your male female anatomy, for example, is 95% cholesterol. Where do you get that? You get that from the runny yolk of the egg. When you hard boil an egg, you're going to see a blue or purple line around that yolk. That was the good cholesterol, and you just killed it. So it needs to be a runny yolk egg. That's what my dinner was tonight. I had my son make a couple of them up for me when he was making his. And that runny yolk is going to feed the body that good cholesterol that it needs, that it can then go to work and function properly for you. When somebody gets a little dopey and they go into a room and they can't remember why they were there, or they open the refrigerator and don't remember what they were looking for, that's because their brain is, it doesn't have that good cholesterol that it needs. And so you got to give it that good cholesterol. Go cook up some eggs. And there's a gentleman, I'm not in love with the story, but it's an interesting story. Every culture is a little bit different, but this guy was somewhere in Africa, and he had, no joke, over 100 kids that he had fathered. And all of his wives were dying. He was outliving everybody. It was well over 100. And somebody asked him, what is your secret? What are you doing? And he said he eats 25 eggs a day. So, I know what that other drug was that I was trying to think of earlier. I think it's Cialis. Maybe I'm saying that wrong, but Cialis and Viagra. No man on the planet would need those if they were eating eggs. So, ladies, if you want your man to function, okay, then make sure you cook him up lots of eggs if he's not willing to cook them up himself. I had a client one time, and I'm a single woman, and this guy said something. I told him about the eggs, and he goes, well, I don't have a woman who will cook them for me. And I said, is there anything wrong with you? Why you can't cook them for yourself? And he goes, oh, okay, I see I went down a path I shouldn't go down. And I said, yeah, you're quite capable of cooking your own eggs. Women weren't born to cook eggs. So cook your own eggs up if you want your anatomy to get back to work, and, pull your brain out of that fog. So if you don't like eggs, you can just throw them in a smoothie and disguise them. If you're a vegan, you can just pull out that little part that actually was the life and, get rid of that if you want, and eat the rest of the egg. The yolk is the most important part. So there's that about the eggs, the anatomy, and keeping that all in check. Again, my number, 844, what is it? 275-1056. Get scheduled. Take advantage. 7 days only. I'm giving this free tongue analysis. And if you've got something more critical, you want to make sure you go to the website, thebodycan.com/schedule. If somebody has varicose veins, migraines, hemorrhoids, you should probably get scheduled. Those are signs. They're basically mini aneurysms before the big one. Why is that? Well, when the blood is trying to flow through and it cannot get through, and it's just pushing, it's pressure, it's trying to flow through that vein or capillary. And what happens is that vein or capillary basically becomes dried out and brittle because the blood is not able to flow through, and it will snap. So then all of a sudden you'll see a varicose vein. Okay? It's a mini aneurysm before the big aneurysm. You are deficient in certain nutrients, and so you need to get scheduled. We did fingernails. We've done a lot on the face. There are other things that show up on the forehead. If you have lines, those are not aging lines. And I did see somebody, Brian, in the comments, like saying something about people with procedures or whatever. What she doesn't understand is that you won't have those lines if you're actually getting those nutrients. It's not aging. So there's a lot of lines that will show up this way across the forehead on people. That's bladder. That's going to be intestine. And it's also going to be the heart. So if you have those lines up on your forehead, then you probably should get scheduled with me, because an MD is never going to tell you that. And most naturopathic doctors don't understand that either. You have to be specialized in what I specialize in. So if I see anything starting to rear its ugly head, I immediately go and take a very specific nutrient to whatever it is I see to cut that right off at the pass. because I don't want those lines. And it's my expertise that will help to turn that around. So I want people reaching out and taking advantage of that. Um, let's see, hair falling out is a sign. Hair that's gray early is a sign. And some people will be like, well, I started to get gray hair when I was 20. Well, you were deficient when you were 20 then. If your hair started to fall out when you were 20, you were deficient when you were 20. Can hair grow back? Absolutely. Do you have to go to hair growth for men? No, you don't. You just need to take certain nutrients. Ladies, usually, but men too, if you're coloring your hair, you need to know this. When you color your hair, that absorbs all the way through to the skull bone and more. The skin is the largest organ on our body. And there was a gentleman who was coming on the hair scene that was going to be as famous as like a Paul Mitchell. Everybody knows that name. It's been around forever. And this guy took his students to go see the cadavers. And the cadavers had their heads cut open all the way to the skull bone. And whatever color they were dyeing their hair, the skull bone was that color. So if you're a brunette, dyeing your hair brunette, your skull bone is brown or almost black. So imagine, to even get to that skull bone, how much of your bloodstream and all the organs that float around. Is that what you really want? At 53, I do not color my hair. This is my natural hair color, blonde. I was a very white blonde as a kid. So it's a little darker, but not much. And, I have friends that I've gone to see, like after COVID, shouldn't have said that word, sorry. After the lockdowns and things had kind of eased up, and I said, oh, I should go get my hair cut. And they looked at me and they said, you're not coloring your hair? I guess somehow they correlated the haircut, because I said I hadn't had my hair cut in like a year. And they said, you aren't coloring your hair? And I said, no, absolutely not. And they said, I'd swear you were dyeing your hair. Well, they're only basing that on the fact that how could I possibly be 52, 53 years old? I think I was probably 53 coming out of it, the lockdowns. How could I possibly be this age and not have gray hair? Well, because I take very, very specific nutrients so that my body is not deficient. Okay. So I'm very calculated in what I do with my body, and I do not ignore my organs for anything. And at least twice a year, I will give my heart very specific nutrients, my liver very specific nutrients, and I'm just bathing it in nutrition so that it's as healthy as it possibly can be. And that's what you need to be doing. And people sometimes will be like, well, I don't have any money, but then they go to Starbucks and spend $5 every single time on a coffee, or $6 or $10. That's ridiculous, because it's a diuretic and it's pulling. If you drink 6 ounces, for example, it might be pulling 8 or 10 ounces of water out of your body. So you're literally dehydrating yourself. And there are very specific vitamins that it will remove. It just kills out of the body, period. So if you're one of those people that takes your nutrients with your coffee, you're probably doing yourself a disservice. There should be a gap in there. I like to tell my clients to space it out an hour to 2 hours away from the coffee, so that you're not washing it straight through. You got to give it a chance to absorb into the body and actually start working. And again, if you have the cracks in the middle of the tongue, chances are really good that you're not absorbing those nutrients anyway, or you're getting like less than 2% of it. So it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Start your day with healthy things. And, this thing here has about 245 different nutrients in it. So I started my day with it, did some protein shakes in between, 2 of them today, and then I'm ending my day with that. So instead of just drinking a straight water or any soda. And where did this all begin with me? It's actually kind of interesting, because when I was a kid, I would get urinary tract infections. And, I only remember the one, but apparently I'd had a few. And when my mom took me to the doctor, he took this little, they put the little, it's like a popsicle stick in your mouth. They look at the tonsils, etc. Most doctors are covering up the evidence. This guy looked at my tonsils and then threw the stick away. But then he looked at my tongue. So back in the day, a lot of the doctors actually knew some of these things. They had that education. Now they don't have it. But when he looked at my tongue, I don't know what he saw because he didn't say specifically. But what he did is he turned to my mom and he said, "Does she eat?" And he listed off a few things. And he said, "Remove those from her diet completely from here on out." And that's exactly the way my good and bad food list is. And so I removed them from the diet. My mom removed them. And never again for the rest of my life did I ever get another urinary tract infection. And you look at elderly people, that's a very common thing to have happen to them in the nursing homes. And there's certain things that they need in their diet and certain things that need to be removed from their diet. And then that will stop being at epidemic levels for these elderly people. That's a terrible thing to have happen to them. Another thing is if you're looking at a hip replacement or a bone and joint replacement, things like that, shoulder issues, you don't need those things 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, probably. You hear, well, my mom fell and her hip broke. Well, no, stop that kind of thinking. It goes like this. Her hip broke and then she fell down. Okay? It's like everything Brian teaches is really the opposite. You got to start thinking different. Okay? And so why did her hip break and then she fell down? Because she wasn't getting the mother load of nutrients for the bones and the joints and the cartilage and the ligaments. And the medical community will tell you most often that you cannot regrow the cartilage in the knees and the hips, etc. That is a lie. If it's not a lie, then it's just literal lack of knowledge, because I help my clients regrow that all day long, every day, and completely not need any of those surgeries. It takes about 6 months of commitment, and I don't like it. Brian, you probably don't like it either. I can't stand it when somebody comes to me for help and then complains like, "Oh, I got to take it for 6 months. Oh, I got to do this." No. If you want it, then you come to me with an open mind so I don't have to deal with that negativity, because I don't want that bouncing off of me. I really like positivity and people that want to look forward to the future. I understand if you're feeling bad or you're depressed or you have anxiety and things like that. I can help with that. I have a client who came to me literally about 45 days ago, and her son was suicidal. And it was kind of gut wrenching. You know, she broke down on the phone, and I'm, a person, like, I have feeling. And when she was telling me the story about her son, and just you think about what's going on in the world and how it is very depressing and very anxiety causing, uh, you know, I understood why he would want to do that, because in his, I think, 26 years of life, 30 years of life, um, they don't feel like they have a future. So where can they work? Where can they go without taking the in the arm? And where can they fly? We have this big planet and we can't go see it. It's just enraging, all of it, that somebody thinks that they're lord over all of us. So I don't buy that. Anyway, so I worked with her son through her for the last 45 days. And the whole family gathered around him, and I said, "Don't leave him alone for a second. Take him out, get him in the fresh air, and breathe, and go see what you can. Take a drive, go to Zion Canyon, go to Bryce Canyon, go to the mountains, and just see the beauty and the majesticness of this country. Stunningly beautiful is our country." And she messaged me, and he's no longer suicidal, because I gave him very specific things for his brain and his body to pull him out of that. So I do get emotional about some of my clients. And he's back on track, and he's living with one of his brothers in another state, and the family is still on top of him. But she said, Dr. Randi, it was because of you that he did not do this. And what turnaround happened just in here with the nutrients that I gave him. So, Brian, do you guys have any questions? Brian, Keith?
No, I was just thinking, and what's excellent about this as well, that I don't know if anybody's noticed or not, but there's no sales pitch here.
No.
There's no, oh, this is the brand. You got to follow this brand or anything. That's not what it's about. It's about the nutrients. And when you were bringing up, a topographical evidence as far as the earth goes and it being able to supply the nutrients to the food that's being grown on it, it made me think of, when I lived back in the day, west of you, down at like Bermuda Ranch, Everglades City, Port of the Islands, what it became. And Port of the Islands had a real estate office there right in front.
Mm-hmm.
And when you went in there, they had a great big picture of the Everglades. And because they're just proud of this, community they were going to build there. But when you looked at that picture of the Everglades, you could look at the line where US 41 went across, okay? And, the Army Corps of Engineers had come in, putting in canals. There was a canal or two put in for some other reasons also. But they went and changed the landscape. And north of that line of US 41, everything was lush, it was green, it was beautiful. I digress. To the bottom of it, near the water. When you went north, that line, it had cut off the flow of everything, and you could see the difference between the green area and the brown area. US 41 totally was a dividing line for it, and our bodies are the same way. And when we're putting things in that are a blocker, just like US 41 was, to the growth and the greenness of the Everglades, that same thing is going to happen with our body. We're not going to have the life that we should have.
That's right.
And I think we'll just leave it with that. Great message this evening, and I'll have this loaded up shortly. Okay. And in the description box, people, you will be able to find links for both the phone number and for the address for the site where you can go and schedule yourself. And I encourage everybody to do so.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brian. I always love being on your program. Keith, did you have anything while you're out there? I don't know if you're muted or not.
Let me see if he's still with us here. Jumping over. Nope, not where I wanted to go. Yeah, technology. I love it. I got to find him on the board.
While you're doing that, my YouTube and my Instagram and my Facebook are all the same. So it'd be Instagram.com/thebodycan. Please follow me there. And YouTube.com/thebodycan. Facebook, I've got 2 strikes against me. Who knows how long that'll last? Facebook.com groups/the-body-can. That one may go away. I mean, I'm doing the best I can trying to hold on to it, but the world is crazy. And
yep, Keith is still with us here. If you want to chime in with anything, Keith. He's unmuted.
He might not be there. Okay. Well.
All right, guys.
Oh, there you are. Okay. It said you'd muted me again.
Nope.
Did you have any questions, Keith, or comments or anything you wanted to say?
No, I'll probably be getting a hold of you myself.
Okay.
Also, I've been dropping a lot of links in the chat and stuff about the different essential oils and things like that. And I think you're right on track. Everything's very important how the body interacts through its own systems. We don't need the external government systems of a false education. And, these doctors spend a lot of money for their education, and they don't want to be proven wrong. They're stuck in a position that makes them look stupid when you look at the real facts.
That's right. That's right. I'm looking at the chat. I don't know if anybody had any questions in there that if they wanted me to answer anything. I didn't know there was a chat until just like right now. So I don't know if was there any questions in there that you saw that I needed to answer? If not, we're good.
All right, sounds great. And everybody, like I said, just check the description box and we'll have the links in there for everybody. Thanks for coming out this evening. And every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Look forward to seeing you. Thanks, Randy. Thanks,
Sounds
Keith.
good. Bye, you guys.
Bye.